Plants. The plant kingdom. There is an enormous range of diverse plants in this world. These range from mosses to ferns to some of the tallest redwood trees, period. Some plants are carnivorous and some plants bloom only once every 30 years. Some plants only germinate during forest fires, and some plants have flowers that smell like dead, rotting meat. While there is diversity in this kingdom, all plants are common in that they are multicellular, usually photosynthetic, and mostly land-dwelling organisms that are very different from their green algae ancestors. Billions of years ago, when Earth was forming, there were no plants that lived on land. At the time, most plants and photosynthetic organisms lived in the water, and the water was able to hold their bodies up toward the sunlight. So how did we get from plants that needed water to hold up their bodies to the giant trees we now have in present day, like the redwoods that stand hundreds of meters in the air all on their own? Well, over millions of years, plants have had to adapt to meet the needs and challenges of living on land. The four major challenges for plants to live on land are obtaining their resources, staying upright, maintaining moisture, and reproducing. Organisms like algae, who require water to survive, can obtain it easily because water surrounds them. But plants that live on land and need water to survive had to adapt to obtain water from the soil. Plants also have to obtain nutrients from the soil in order to grow. And the bodies of most plants have specialized organ systems called shoots and roots that provide access to the air and to the soil. Below ground, a plant's roots absorb water and essential minerals from the soil, and above ground, shoots bear leaves, which is the energy source that they use to make food. Now, most plants transport materials between their roots and shoots within a vascular system, which is a system of tube-shaped cells that are throughout the plant. Now, as we've just talked about, even if you go with the largest algae in the ocean, like kelp, they're still actually supported by the buoyancy of water, which helps keep them upright. Now take them out of the water, and they are limp and flexible, and this is because air cannot provide the same support for plants that water can. Plants that grow on land have an important adaptation in which they produce a chemical that hardens in the plant's cell wall called lignin. Lignin helps plants stand upright because they contain strong and rigid support tissues. Even though plants grow on land and are exposed to air, inside their cells these processes must still take place in an environment that has water. Plants have adapted a waxy surface or cuticle that coats their leaves and other above-ground parts to help them retain water. However, this waxy surface does not do well when plants need to exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen between the surrounding air and the inside of the photosynthesizing leaves. So plants have another adaptation called stomata, which are microscopic pores in the leaf's surface. Stomata will open at certain times of the day, allowing gas exchange, and then they close for the rest of the time, preventing water loss by evaporation. Living on land provided another challenge where plants had to protect their gametes or their egg and sperm cells from drying out. Not only this, but they also had to have some means for dispersal of not just their egg and sperm cells, but also of their fertilized eggs, which in plants are generally seeds. Now, several adaptations of plants met these challenges. All plants produce their gametes in a protective jacket, which surrounds the gametes without dehydrating them. And in most plants, the sperm is able to reach eggs by traveling within pollen grains, which are carried by wind or maybe by animals. Now, when the eggs are fertilized, the zygote develops into an embryo, and for most plants, the embryos are eventually dispersed as seeds enclosed in a protective coating as well. With hundreds of thousands of plant species that exist in the world, it's hard to imagine that scientists have basically grouped the plants into two major groups: non-vascular plants and vascular plants. Non-vascular plants lack a well-developed system of tubes that transport water and other materials. They are usually low-growing and do not have roots for absorbing water from the ground. Instead, they obtain water and materials directly from their surroundings. An example of a non-vascular plant is moss. Now, plants with true vascular tissue are called vascular plants. They are better suited for life of dry areas, and they have well-developed vascular tissues so they can move materials quickly and efficiently throughout the plant's body. The vascular tissues also provide strength, stability, and support to the plant, so these plants have the potential to grow very tall. Plants also have complex life cycles that consist of two stages, the sporophyte stage and the gametophyte stage. During the sporophyte stage, the plant produces spores or tiny cells that can grow into new organisms. A spore will then develop into the plant's other stage called the gametophyte. Now, in the gametophyte stage, the plant produces two kinds of sex cells, sperm cells and egg cells. And eventually, a sperm cell and an egg cell join to form a zygote. The zygote will then develop into a sporophyte, and the cycle starts again. Let's take a break here and show what you know.